Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, it is Pat Hetherington from the band Parcels. They are from Australia, but I believe some, if not all of them, live in Berlin right now. I know Pat does. Pat is the synthesizer / keyboard player for Parcels. The new album is called Loved. Hetherington, or Pat, whatever we'd like to call him, Pat plays guitar and synth, where he writes songs on both, but he plays synth and keyboards for the band. So we discussed during this podcast when he decides to write a song on a keyboard or a guitar, and if one of those instruments, writing with one of them, changes the direction of the song. I'd imagine that it does. We discussed that. A couple of things of note, things I've probably never heard before. One, if you've listened to this podcast at all, we talk about the influence of reading and art and visual art on songwriting. Pat is influenced by smells. We talked about how smells, which kind of blows my mind, about how smells influence creativity in the songwriting. But that makes complete sense if you think about it. There are certain things that we smell remind us of certain events because of the primitive nature of that scent. We discussed that. Also, I loved this. He said, I need to touch base with the sunset every day. I take a walk every day at sunset to feel that change. He doesn't have to necessarily see the sunset, but he needs to kind of experience that switch over, and he finds that to be invigorating. So a lot of cool stuff in this. Take a listen again. The new Parcels album is Loved. And here is my interview with Pat Hetherington of Parcels. I always start with a very simple question to get things going, and that is, do you think it's important as a songwriter to create in some fashion every day, or is it better not to force things?
It's a good question. It's a question I'm asking myself at the moment. I mean, it's probably just different for everybody. I'm not on the school of thought of, like, for myself, of every day I go to the studio, every day I sit down and write. I don't feel that. But I do, like, I only do it when I feel the urge. But I usually do feel the urge, so I do it most days. Yeah. But I don't believe in forcing it with the songwriting. When it comes to the production, the recording, the other stuff, I feel like I can sit down and work at it. But to me, the songwriting is a little harder to grasp.
So you say when you get the urge. So does that, if you don't get the urge after a few days, do you say, yeah, I probably should do something?
No. And again, it's sometimes I don't know where to draw the line between songwriting and production and recording, because I'm also producing a lot of music, and in a lot of the Parcels music, it has like a big aspect of, like, being on the computer and recording sounds, and that I can do anytime. But when it comes to sitting down and writing a song with lyrics and chords, I never push it, and sometimes it takes a couple of months of having nothing new. And that feels important sometimes to me.
And you're okay with that? Because I feel like maybe some songwriters tell me there's that anxiety after a while, like it hasn't happened for a couple of months. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm okay with it because I write a lot, and I have so many songs as well that have never been finished, never been recorded, never been released. at this point there's hundreds of songs, so I have enough to just pull from and record if nothing new is coming. And so far, every time I've had a few months where nothing's coming, after that, a lot of stuff flows out. So I haven't worried about it yet.
So when that urge happens, where it sounds like it happens pretty often, where you feel like I just have to. There, when do those ideas happen? Maybe you can answer that, but I'm always trying to get to, as a writer, also the essence of where am I? What am I doing? Is there any connection
Mm.
to, is there a commonality to when the urge strikes?
Um, I think I have to. It strikes when I've had some sort of input, whatever that is, some sort of experience in life, a connection, a relationship, a travel, whatever it is, reading something. Like there has to be some sort of input and something new. Um, but then I need to be in a space where I'm away from that and I'm like processing the input that's happened before, if that makes any sense.
It does. So, do you need? It sounds like you need distance. Or maybe we'll phrase that as a question. Do you need distance to be able to write about something, or is the immediacy better because those emotions are still raw?
I find it really hard to sit down and write about something. Well, firstly, just in general, to be very intentional. I don't sit down and think, oh, I had this experience, I'm going to write about that. Things are flowing out, but usually it's happening on a more subconscious level, and it's coming, I think, a little bit later when I have the space. Sometimes maybe like something will come up from, an experience I've just had, but I can't be intentional about it, or at least so far. I find it very hard to sit down and write the song I want to write. You know,
Now, those experiences, do you? I think you said input. So, are there things that you hear, conversations, maybe not that you're having, but that you overhear occasionally?
yeah, yeah, sure. It's everything. I'm always writing down lines or words or images. Um, yeah, I guess it's usually coming from myself and my direct surroundings. But um, do you mean like if I just overhear a conversation on the street or something like that?
Yeah, because I do hear that quite often, where literal conversations, someone they'll overhear a phrase and they'll say, "Ah, that line belongs in a song."
I think sometimes, yeah, sometimes you just hear those phrases or a word where it's like, I really want to use that in a song. I'll write that down in my notes, and there's so many of those. But again, I find it really hard then, and I've tried many times to sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to turn that into a song and really fail most of the time with that. But some point it'll just pop into a song as I'm writing, it'll just come out in one of the lines or something like that.
And when you start these songs, you're starting. Are you in front of a keyboard typically? Like, how do these songs? What instrument are you using in the beginning?
Uh, Mix either keyboard or guitar, but quite often guitar, especially when it's a more lyrical song. I've thought about that. I feel like for me, I mean, maybe it's also, yeah, to me, the piano, like the keys on the keyboard, put me in a more like musical place. I'm thinking about chords and melody, whereas the guitar, and I think it might even be something to do with I'm looking away from the instrument, so I'm like dreaming and thinking about words, whereas the piano, it's right in front of my eyes. I'm more in the music side. If that makes sense.
Mm, it does. I like it. I want to explore this. Um, I've so I have a couple thoughts because I was thinking about how many people I've interviewed who actually start songs on piano or keyboards.
Mm,
And that has to be more deliberate because the guitar, you can walk around and be in any room. But
yeah.
I think with you lose the spontaneity. Maybe you don't. when you're on the keyboards because obviously you can't carry that thing around. So I was thinking a lot about that difference. Um, can you be, because I imagine you can be more spontaneous, just pick up the guitar, but the keyboards are more deliberate, right?
I think so. I I also travel a lot, so I often just have a guitar. There's guitars all around my apartment. So yeah, it's more of a thing to just pick up, strum a little bit, and that's also how I start songs often. I'm not trying to write a song, I'm just playing a little bit of guitar and then it'll flow onto something. And I do that on the piano. Sometimes I sit down and play, but I think you're right. I think it feels more spontaneous.
When you're playing the guitar, this is going to be very specific. Are you sitting, standing, or walking around?
I'm sitting. I'm always sitting. Yeah.
You'd be surprised. I get varying answers with that.
Hmm. Interesting.
Um,
It's yeah. Maybe I should try standing. I'll try it next time.
so the response I've gotten where people who walk around is there's something about the cadence when they're walking that helps.
Ah, yeah. Okay, I can relate to that with lyrics of I write a lot of lyrics walking around with no instrument, like just walking around the city or um around the street. I need to move to sometimes unlock the to like work out the puzzle of the lyrics. So I get that.
All right, I want to dig into that now because I was going to ask you about that at some point because I believe that movement is critical to my process. Now,
Mm,
I use it when I get stuck, when I feel like if I'm sitting here for extended periods of time, I just go, I got to get out of here and get a break. Um, I do
are
get
you
ideas.
writing? Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's so I get it's funny. So I need to kind of think about this because I went for a run earlier today.
Okay.
And I do it in two things. I either do it just to kind of say, I can't sit for any longer. I've got to just go take a break.
Yeah.
Um, I don't use it to work things out, but I do get
Mm,
ideas out of nowhere when I'm
mm.
running.
When
Um,
you're running, and are you listening to music or just
no,
nothing and
never.
just running? Okay.
Never. I've never been that type of person, only because I use that time to be in my thoughts.
Mm,
As a period of introspection. I have gotten ideas. I do some freelance writing on the side. It's not my real job, but I do freelance writing. And I think every one of those ideas have come from being on runs. And it's like, oh, I should write about that.
mm.
Um, so that is absolutely like that's a deliberate part of my process. Um,
That's cool. You know the
yeah,
that Japanese author with the book about running. What
yeah,
I
Murakami. Yeah.
Murakami. Yeah, yeah. He loves it
Oh,
too.
and okay, so I want to because I find that part of the process to be just so vital for me. So I know you're in Berlin, and I've been to Berlin many times for work, and honestly, it's probably my favorite European city to go to. I love it there, love
Mm.
it, and I could just see that. So when you're walking around, are there specific places that you go, or do you find that going to a new place if you're walking around is more productive?
I usually walk the same kind of few directions. I mean, I think if I'm like turning over lyrics, and I'm probably like the same as what you said. Sometimes you just need to go for a run. I also love running, or you just need to move to like reset, get out of the thing. But then I, I often walk and write, like, and I have my phone, and I'm just turning around lines in my head and trying to find rhymes and things like that. And for that, I'll just try and get away from people. So I kind of walk in a couple of specific directions near my place and often sit on the same like bench or yeah, go somewhere familiar.
So you do that to work out ideas that you had before you started the run or the walk rather than, oh, let me go walk around or run and see what things inspire me as I in my environment.
Yeah, yeah, two different things. Yeah, for when I'm running, I do listen to music, and I mean I discovered I love running, and I discovered that on tour while we were touring a lot. I was like living in a bus. I needed to move my body, and I just would just okay, I'm just gonna get out of the bus and just run, and I always did it with music. And I realized, oh, now I have 40 minutes a day to listen to an album. It's like study for me. I can just listen to a new album every time. So that's like musical inspiration. And I'm always having ideas musically while running. But for the like for the walking and the lyric thing, it's like I'll start something here and hope like as much as possible something will flow out, and then I have to the rest of it feels like this puzzle that I have to piece together. I need a second verse. I need extra lines, and actually at the moment I've spent 4 days working on the same lyrics for one song, and it drives me crazy. It's just this puzzle of possibilities that I'm trying to work out when I walk.
All right, so let me ask you, let's explore that because I feel like when those things happen, I reach a point, and I'm not a songwriter, prose writer, never written a song in my life, but
Hmm.
at some point I realize, okay, I've got to put this thing aside. Whether it's whatever it is that I'm working on, I've got to put it aside, and I can come back to it a day later, a week later, with a much more, I think, with just a better perspective on it. So, do you set those things aside ever, or is it I've got to see this thing through until the end?
Yeah, it depends on the song. Like the one I'm working on right now, for some reason I've just been really upset. I just feel like it's so close and it's right there. And I think also I want to record the vocals because I want to move with the recording. So I've just had this like I need to get these words. But usually I'm better at like feeling out, okay, this is as far as I'm going to get with this right now. Something has to come. And sometimes some of these songs take a year, 2 years. I'll write a verse, come back to it 6 months later, come back again. Like I'm write 10 different verses over a couple of years. And yeah, it's a big pile.
With those piles, then, because you had mentioned this earlier, you've got hundreds of unreleased tracks. Are you sometimes mixing and matching, pulling lyrics from one, music from another? How often does that happen?
Yeah, that's happening. That's happening for sure. I'll musically maybe a chorus will come from a song that I wrote 2 years ago, and it'll be like, oh, that fits perfectly with this verse I just wrote. And lyrically, I love it lyrically. I have these images in my life, and a lot of what I'm talking about is also, yeah, like I say, unreleased, not like nobody's ever heard it. So it's very much for me. It's like my own diary and my own kind of little world. I love bringing back images, and I have these strong, or a dream that I had with a very clear story, and I'll write that in three different songs, and maybe it works in one of them. But yeah, I love it, bringing things back.
Do you revise a lot of your lyrics, or do you feel like the first take is the best take?
Depends on the song, depends on the type of song. I also feel like there's maybe like it's just to simplify it, maybe there's like two types of songs that I'm working on a lot. And one of it is more of a band context. It's maybe more pop music. It's more communal. We'll all be singing together, or it's more about the groove of the song. And then it's usually first feeling because it's also more rhythmic and it's more about the sounds of the vowels and how they fit with the music. So I feel like sometimes there's just nothing I can do other than the first sound that kind of comes. But then I love writing these more wordy kind of lyrical songs, which I'll revise over and over. I'll change words. I love the puzzle of it. Yeah.
Last month, I interviewed the Irish poet Paul Muldoon, who is like a
Cool.
titan in the world of literature. A
Mm.
titan. I mean, if you've taken any poetry class, 21st century poetry, he's in that. He'll be in that class. I interviewed him because he teaches at Princeton, but he has a side project as a songwriter, of course. So I interviewed him in the context of him being a songwriter, but we talked about poetry. And he said something that really got me thinking, and he said that when he writes poetry, he will never write a line until the one before it is perfect. He'll even,
Whoa.
yeah. And I realize as a poet, you almost have to do that because the sounds all have to work together. So I can't, like, it sounds like he even won't even write a word until everything before it is perfect, not just lines, because the sounds have to fit together.
Mm,
Um, and you said something earlier a few minutes ago relating to that. It got me thinking about it, that the vowels and the music all have to fit together in the sounds. That's a very poetic way of looking at it. Is
mm,
how the sound, but with poetry that's imperative because there's no music. So I could kind of get what he was saying, but I thought as a prose writer, I would never do that. Like when I was a professor, I would never tell my students, you know, don't revise. I would always tell my students, do not revise as you write. Just get everything out there and then go back. Anyway,
yeah.
so that's what got me thinking about that when you said that, was that idea that all those things have to blend together. So when they all have to fit together, does that make revising more difficult?
Yeah. Yeah, it can do, especially with, like I say, the more, I guess, musically focused songs. Like it's sometimes just impossible. It feels like, um, especially if you start with a melody and you're like, I'm like, just saying nonsense, but just using the sound of my voice to make a melody, and then sounds come out, and then uh, sometimes you get stuck with those vowel sounds that you're so used to hearing or that just fit with the music. And like, okay, I have to work with this E sound, and there's only a few words that can fit into that gap. Yeah.
I Before I forget, I want to return to what you were talking about the guitar and writing on keyboards or piano. Wait, so is it piano or keyboards that you're typically writing on?
Uh, I like piano, a bit of both. Whatever's around. Also, like I say, like I'm always moving, traveling, touring, so it's also an element of just like what's in front of me. But I love the piano because it feels physical. I can get a bit more like lost in some sort of flow with it.
Wait, so which was the instrument that you said you can kind of you can look in front of you
With the guitar.
with a
Yeah.
guitar? So I would imagine then, what the hell do I know? But I imagine that that would make for much more introspective lyrics if you're kind of looking out and you can just kind of see. Does that make a difference? I love that idea though.
Yeah.
That when you're looking at, I guess, what does that do? What is looking out? How does that change the lyrics?
Yeah, I've never really thought about it, but my songs, if I think about it, I think the ones I write on guitar are usually the more personal, maybe more honest, more vulnerable, and more specific. More specific. Where with the piano, it's a bit more of an impression, often what I write. Um, so yeah, I guess I'm looking out, I'm just daydreaming out, and then I'm able to go into myself more, I think.
Okay, so does that purpose, how can I phrase this? Does that purpose drive you to that instrument? Is it, I want to write a specific song, I'm going to go to the guitar, or let me just start to do something and oh, this specific thing comes out? Is it, I guess it's a chicken or the egg question, right?
Yeah, I'm just messing around usually on a guitar or the piano until something comes out. Sometimes I'll switch. I'll make some chords on something, and then I'll often actually, if I make chords on the piano, I'll switch to the guitar to write the lyrics. Um, or just sometimes one instrument fits it better.
So is there a certain emotion that drives you to one or the other?
Maybe. Yeah. It's also interesting to me. I'm thinking about this stuff for the first time, but I think it's also it's a deep thing. Like, I mean, the songwriting in general, but for me, particularly sitting with the guitar and writing a song is something that I've done since I was uh, 13 years old or younger, and it's how I've just lived with this like thing. It's and that's specifically with the guitar. I never did that with the piano as a kid. So it's like that's a deep place where I go to express myself or to deal with my shit or like yeah, that's if I have an intense emotion or something I'm going through or want to explore that, the guitars is that feeling. Yeah.
Can you write from emotional extremes? Again, I think some people say that if they are too melancholy or too euphoric, it's difficult to write. So can you write from those emotional extremes?
Yeah, it's probably hard, especially from the sadness or yeah, or the that the more difficult emotions if I'm fully in it. I mean, if I'm in a proper like depression, then I'm not writing at all. But I do take all those feelings and once maybe it's subsided, they can come out more. I feel like positive feelings, it's easier to write from because it's a positive like force. It's like it's much easier just to act on that. Yeah.
And I think that that makes sense. I mean, a lot of
Mm,
people will say you can't write when you're in a funk. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, we love to think that it's a therapeutic idea, but uh, it's a lot easier to sit down. I'd say naturally, if you're euphoric, you are more motivated. But if you're truly in
yeah.
a funk, I don't know. That's the last thing I want to do is write. All right, let's talk about that ritual. So, did is there a time of day when you find you're most effective?
Um, not that specifically. I usually like write and do creative stuff in the afternoon and the nighttime, not in the morning. I find I need a lot of time just in general in the morning to like get ready to deal with the world. It's also why I love running and things like that. I'm just like I usually don't do much in the morning.
Are you a middle of the night person?
Yeah, I love working at night. I love recording and writing at night. More recording. I find maybe if I'm trying to find like a routine with it, it would be most common like I'll be doing more writing stuff in the afternoon. Maybe I'm trying to work those lyrics out, work those chords out, the sections, and then I record something, and then I can go deep into the recording and the production and the sound world in the night.
And you can go through the night, just fully through the night.
I can. I don't usually. No, like I'll get some sleep. Yeah.
Even when I was in college, I could never do all nighters. I could never do it. I'm amazed people who say they like that. Well, these artists will tell me they like the solitude. There's something about feeling like you're the only person awake that's energizing, ironically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a bit of a mystical time. I don't know. It doesn't need to be ridiculously late for me, but I do find when the sun goes down, I have more feeling for it. I also need to like touch base with the sunset every day, most every day. I think that comes from growing up in Australia and in the nature and with the ocean is like really being aware of the sun going down every day. So living in the city now, I take a walk at sunset every day just to like feel that change and then come back and keep working or whatever.
Hmm. I like that. So do you will go out deliberately? It's got to be hard in a big city, practically, to find a place where you can see the sun and the sunset, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple spots, but it's not even, I don't need to see the sun going down. I just need to see the light changing. I just need to feel yeah.
So it's very centering.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. It's just something I feel like doing. I guess it's centering. It's like a reset. It's like, maybe it's also pretty like, yeah, I find it quite unnatural to, to suddenly, for it to suddenly be the nighttime and I haven't been a part of that change or something, you know?
Do the sounds of the city, if you're not wearing headphones, do the sounds of the city inspire you? Maybe not things maybe not voices necessarily, but I could cite a lot of songwriters who've told me they've gotten. I mean, we talk about Stu McKenzie from King Gizzard told me that car
Mm,
alarms. He got ideas
cool.
from car alarms. I had, gosh, I could just cite who are some others. Fantagram. I remember Josh Carter told me that going over covered bridges in upstate New York, the thump, 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 thump. And
Cool.
I think the Bee Gees Jive Talking was that beat was going over a bridge.
Okay. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember that song. Oh, that's cool.
Um,
Um, it's a good question. Not in such a specific way like the Bee Gees thing. There's a bell that rings. I live kind of near some sort of church. There's this bell ringing often, and they ring for ages, much longer than I think they would need to. I don't know. There's a very loud kind of church bell. It feels very hypnotic, and I haven't like written a song around it or anything, but it's got a feeling. I've been feeling that lately, just this kind of thing that keeps coming. It's kind of reminds me of the if you're in like Morocco or Turkey or something, the prayers that ring out over the streets, like it's this cool measure of time. And but I don't know, the city's tough. I'm not from the city, and as soon as I leave the city now, I realize there's so much noise all the time, and I'm so grateful to be away from it. Yeah.
yeah, it's there are two extremes. There's the people who get inspired and energized by being in the city, like New York or something like that, and there are people that have moved out of the city deliberately because the solitude is where they love to create.
Yeah, I think it's a mix for me. I need to live. I love living in the city. I love the people, the inspiration, the experiences. But then I do write a lot more when I get out. Like I spent 2 months. Like I never want to be in Berlin in the wintertime, so I went to Portugal and visited a friend and spent a couple of months in the south of Europe in winter, and that's where I wrote all of my recent songs. It's like getting away. Yeah.
I want to ask you about the church, though, the church bells, because if I hear you
Mm.
correctly, it sounds like you feel like there's a song somewhere in there.
Yeah, there's something deep about it. There's something like trance like. There's just a feeling, and especially when I've been home the last couple of weeks and I just hear it ringing out every day. It's got a feeling. I don't know. That's just I mean, life is just full of things like that, where like that has a feeling, like, and I'm not like I need to turn that into a song, but maybe it will make it into a song in some way, you know. There's just so many moments and things like that.
All right, let's end with this external inspirations. I do find that songwriters are voracious readers for the most part. So, uh, does that, I guess, how much reading do you get to do?
Less than I used to, and less than I should. I love it when I do read. I love reading. I love novels. Um, especially like things that are a little bit surreal. Yeah. So I do every time I read like a book. I know I'm loving a book when I'm just like every couple of pages I'm writing down one of the lines. I keep them in my notes as well and just like take so much from it. Yeah.
Are you a genre person or the person who says, I've got to read everything by that author?
No, I'm not. I've never been that like never been that. I guess I grew up more like focused on. I had this feeling of like I need to read like classics or like books that are, which is probably the same feeling I had with music, but with music it's a lot quicker and easier to get through all the classics, and I don't read enough to like have read every classic novel, but I grew up more with that. So and now I try to read more modern stuff a little bit, but still, yeah, I've mostly read like older books, which I find weird.
What about other types of art, whether it's visual art, anything inspire you that's what types of art inspire you that aren't songs?
Um, you know what's really inspiring to me is smells. Um, and recently, like I've always had that feeling. Recently, I've been really inspired by like fragrance and perfume as an art. I had a friend in Paris who was a perfume maker, and I'd never really come across that world, like perfumes. And I just never came in touch with it. And then he would tell me all these inspiring stories about like where the smells he would make and the memories that he was recreating in the moment. So I started to see it in this way. And since then, I started to get little samples. I just love getting samples of perfume wherever I can and smelling these different worlds and emotions and memories that are in that. I find that really inspiring for songwriting too.
Oh man, I love this. So, but I could
Mm,
see the connection because okay. So for example, you're walking down the street, you smell freshly cut grass. That very quickly takes you to some nostalgic moment.
yeah.
Um there's a very I mean, it's so obvious what you just told me, but I've never ever thought about that before that y- because the easy thing would be, oh, I see that. I see that. Yeah, I see that person, I see that boat. I'm going to write about that.
Mm,
But you can't write about, I guess you could write about freshly cut grass. But so there's one level of separation. But to
yeah.
me, it sounds like between like a smell and a song, whereas with sight, or hearing things, obviously, that's more direct. That's really, I love that idea. Um,
I love it too, and it's very feeling based. I mean, smell is so nostalgic and emotional, and I love that it what reminds me of music is that can be a blend of things. You can take the smell of fresh grass and then mix that with the smell of a cigarette or a bus, the fumes of a bus, and it's layering these like emotions and memories on top of each other, which I feel music is really similar to that somehow.
and that happens a lot. That's inspiring. Like you get song ideas from those from that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I get feelings and images and it just it's again the writing is not something I get an idea, I go and write it, but I just get the feeling that I want to write. I get the impulse and the it's just like a general state of curiosity, I guess, that inspires. Yeah.
It would be different with fragrances, at least for me, because fragrances they're now I know nothing about the fragrance industry, but they're artificial. I mean, they're created, whereas the I know we go back to freshly cut grass. I feel like
Mm,
that's the stereotype. That's more
yeah.
organic.
Yeah, but that's why it's like music because the sound of a church bell as opposed to the sound of a synthesizer, you've got the human feeling mixed in with that. So I think a fragrance, if you're looking at it like that, it's like there's the human that is putting these smells together, putting these feelings, these emotions together. And I'm looking at it in like a very like inspired way. I'm sure a lot of fragrance is also just like commercial, like whatever. But you know what I mean with that. There's a human in the middle of it that is putting themselves into it. So that's why I think it's also like music, and they're putting these smells together. I find that inspiring.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug. My book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.